Hi, welcome back to the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast. We hope that you've been enjoying the various homeowners that you've had the opportunity to listen and hear from, and hear their inspiration and their stories about how they landed as a member of a really precious community in a really vibrant village. And today we are going a little different direction, and you have an opportunity to meet someone who doesn't live in watercolour but has very deep roots in Westport, and perhaps gain some insight into some of the vision that Stephen Rolston, founder and visionary behind Watercolour Westport, has learned from our guest. And I'll introduce you to Mark Snider. Welcome, Mark.
Good to be here.
I am so glad you're here. It's really a joy to have you here. I know you will shed some interesting perspectives on what people might understand about watercolor, what they may have learned by listening to some of our marketing and messaging, but a different perspective that might inspire them in different ways. And I know you've been a long-time friend and consultant, advisor, a trusted advisor to Land Ark Homes. So it's really a pleasure to have you here. I think one question we could start with, just to get you introducing yourself, help us to know who you are, some of your background and training, and some of those roots that you have in Westport.
Sure, yeah. I raised in the village here. My father was an excavation contractor, and grew up on Concession Street. And I moved away to go to school in '87, and then came back with my family with 4 kids, my wife and 4 kids, back in 2007. And I live on Spring Street, just about 7-8 doors down from where I grew up. And it's been a great place to raise my family, and they've greatly enjoyed. Now they're all growing up and have moved on, but they'd love to be back in the area as well. But no, it's been a wonderful place to grow up myself and to raise my family. Right.
That's amazing. When you look back on your growing up years, for a long time, I mean, a lot of our messaging and our marketing has been saying that, Westport hasn't seen new homes for a very long time, and that watercolor was really a new vision for an old village,
right,
and a really precious historic place. What are some of the things that you feel haven't changed, that those deep roots that you enjoyed as a child still are here today?
Well, the natural spaces that surround the village are pretty special. I've been part of the tourism group and been involved with that, and when people have been talking about what makes this place special, and it's the history, it's the fact that we're a village at the foot of a small mountain, but it's our mountain, and at the lake, but also it's such a friendly place and always has been. And I think people sense that when they come and visit, or those who have moved to the area, they sense the friendliness and a real strong sense of community here, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you involved in some community groups yourself?
Very active in our church, the Free Methodist Church in town. And yes, I've been involved with in tourism groups in the village, and participated in other initiatives with the Village of Westport as well. Okay. And it's there's all kinds of opportunities to get involved with the village, and it's been great to see residents at Watercolour get involved directly as well in activities and events here.
Yeah, we've heard that from some of our other homeowners.
Yeah.
Just setting down their own new roots.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so 1987 you went to school. Urban or land planning, urban planning, whatever the title is, has changed a lot.
Yeah.
How did your training prepare you for what you're doing today and what are some of the nuances that you see in terms of differences?
Well, I've been a planner since graduating in 1991.
Okay.
And the lingo around planning has changed over the years, but in terms of smart growth or sustainable development, there's all kinds of catchphrases, but in essence, it still boils down to what is good land use planning, what's good planning, and the elements of that are much the same and fairly timeless, in fact, in terms of what makes a good community, a walkable community, a safe community, so I've taken my schooling and have applied that in my consulting role. Okay. I've been involved with a number of land development projects across Eastern Ontario, and try to build those key elements of good planning in all the design work and everything we do.
Yeah. looking back on the history of Westport as a village, what are some of those foundational pieces of the plan of the village that happened, 200 years ago, that we're still reaping the benefits of today? Like, why is Westport so special? Why do people walk in and say, oh, this is different?
Well, it is interesting when you look at a lot of the special parts of most of the urban centers in Ontario, or anywhere for that matter. A lot of them predated modern planning or predated the car. And a lot of them were designed on a grid. They were compact, they were walkable. And with the advent of the car, things changed, and we've learned and evolved as a profession to not make everything oriented around the car. Okay. And so with watercolor, it's designed more on a grid, a modified grid we call it, because you do have to respect natural features like stream corridors and hillsides, but it's not curvilinear design, we call it. The post-World War II suburbs where even your GPS can get confused and give up.
Right,
and
you
so,
can go in circles and think, right. I ended up in a court again, and I can't get out. How do I get out of here?
A P-loop to nowhere.
Right.
And the geography of nowhere, one
so,
very famous land planner calls it, because you can't get anywhere other than in a car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we tried to pick up some of what makes Westport special and how do you incorporate that into the design here. So there's a mix of housing types and even the colors you've used, and bringing the streetscape up a little closer to the sidewalks rather than the large front yards, and all those things make it more intimate, more walkable, and so we've tried to build that in for sure.
As you were raising your family and your roots being in Westport, did they experience some of those benefits themselves? Like, I look at it and I think, did they walk to school? Did they get to walk to the arena and do everything that they do in their growing up years?
Well, where we live now, I timed it, and I left after a hockey game one evening, and door to door from the arena to my front door was a 1.5-minute walk.
Oh boy!
So with two daughters that played hockey, they had the benefit of that for sure, and so no, everything is quite close, quite walkable, and so that's been great. As a kid, it was like. I don't think we had any regard for property lines at all. We kind of owned the whole village. We went wherever we wanted and played wherever we wanted, and most people knew everybody, so there was no issues that way. But
right.
But yeah, and taking advantage of Foley Mountain and hikes, and we're a family that loves to hike and get out on the trails, and they're right there, right at the edge of the village, which is fantastic.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I know that part of bringing new homes to Westport, there has to be that respect for what was there before. What do you think about when you think about the integration of the design to the implementation and the stewardship of the land from an environmental point of view?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people look at the environment and say, oh, you're disrupting what was already there.
Well,
how does that?
When we begin the design process, you look at the features you're working with. You do topographic maps of the site. You see what the lay of the land would be, how drainage patterns work, where there's natural features, stream corridors, and then that's the beginning point. You respect those features, and water flows downhill. So I mean, these same streams carry on through the village or outlets to the lake or the pond, and so yeah, it's very important to respect those features. And with I'm a planner, I'm not an engineer, but I mean with the engineers that do their design work, and they're subject to rigorous reviews from the province in terms of the design, and so it's very important that you look at the watersheds and impacts and so on, and be careful in your design that way for sure. Yeah.
Steve, what are some things that Mark has shared with you that were kind of a revelation to you as you've learned more and grown in a different direction? I mean, we always say this is Land Ark 2.0. Yeah. You're doing things differently than you did in other communities. I'm curious to hear your perspective.
And Mark had been a land planner at the firm that we were using, and the majority of our communities were already draft approved when we bought them, except for Riding View Estates Phase 2. and then Bedore Farm nearby on Bob's Lake, and that's when I fell in love with Westport. It's 25 years ago, just starting to come to this village and see the potential of not even knowing that we would get involved so many years later with buying this farm. So when we bought the first farm, the only book I knew about was Andreas Duani's book, The Smart Growth Manual, and that's how Mark used it as a template for the first farm. But then shortly thereafter, Mark gave me another book called Rural by Design by Randall Ardent, and it too made a tremendous impact as we're rolling out these next phases. So Mark, could you, since you're the land planner, talk about how what's not part of that original first farm will be so different from the layout of the first farm?
Well, with the rural by design, it speaks to what I was just saying, that you look at the natural features and then you plan in that context, with the idea that more land is set aside and protected and preserved. And if you have tighter clusters of development in the pockets that aren't environmentally constrained or sensitive, and so that's, under the Planning Act, you're required to give about 5% of your, there's a few other provisions in there, but anyway, 5% of your land for parkland purposes. But when you look at the stream corridors and other features, I think in the end you're going to be giving significantly more than that minimum for protection, and so they're going to be a resource that's going to be enjoyed by all the not only the residents within Watercolour, but within the village of Westport as well.
And that was another idea you gave us, is take the best stream corridors and don't make them private, make them public. And the other idea, make the best view lots public as well. Don't privatize that, because everybody should have the benefit of walking along the stream corridors, and everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy the views. And that just right there, we think we'll have 50 acres of preserved land out of our 220, about 12 kilometers of walking trails, counting all the perimeters and all the creekside trails, and the cross trails that will go with that. And then about 24 gathering places, because I also didn't know about the importance of places to gather, to build community. So all the different seating areas and picnic tables here, rocking chairs there, gazebo here. Like, it just gives people like a reference mark, like people go to Europe to enjoy those types of places to gather. And North America has the least amount of gathering places of any industrialized nation, the US and Canada.
Interesting.
So yeah, a lot of this has come from Mark, as that book, Rural by Design, and the Smart Growth Manual have really, I'm not a great land planner, but I really want to make sure that this is a great land plan, because that's how come I felt so many things that were different in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And that's why even your experience being a land planner in other places has really helped us so much with what I think is unfolding here.
Yeah, there's some really special spots on this property, things that a lot of people in the village may not be aware of. Well, they're seeing it now. The hill behind us here, and I grew up, that was our toboggan hill. That
Okay.
was, a special spot where I knew what that view looked like, and it's arguably as nice, and this could be debated, but arguably as nice as the view from Spy Rock, because from there you look down at the village, you see the steeples, you see the water in the distance, and you see the mountain, as opposed to being on the mountain where you don't, you're there, you see down below.
Right.
And so, yes, there could have been houses built on that ridge, and they would have been a real premium location because of that view. But this is a forever thing. When you design that and set that aside, it's something that generations from now can enjoy, that park space up on that hill. And it's going to be something pretty special, I think.
And Mark, you've also shared with me this idea of the introduction to the Bob Newhart show and New England villages. Can you share a bit about that? How that
Well, I was
relates
just
to
saying that
view?
the view from the hill reminds me of New England. We're a
Okay.
ski family. We spend times in eastern townships of Quebec or in Vermont, New Hampshire. We've skied, and some of those villages among the hills
Yes.
is something it's not that common in flat Ontario,
Right.
but we have something special here in the village with the change of the landscape and the hills and the historic compact little village that's like what you would see in the villages of New England. So that's kind of how I presented it to you, that
Yes.
you provide that space and you've got your New England village view from up on the hill. And so,
Beautiful. I feel like we have a lot to thank you for the legacy that you're helping us to leave
Oh yeah.
behind, because I think, it sounds like there would have been a lot of left turns and right ways that we could have missed. So thank you already in advance.
Happy to be part of it.
Yeah. Is your perspective on the use of the land affected? I mean, we're all talking about housing, talking about the increased number of houses that are needed in Canada. How much of what we are doing here in watercolor is external to what we can decide for ourselves? Like a Land Ark, from a planning point of view of the use of the land. Is there pressure for us to be building higher density, to be providing more housing? How does that unfold?
One of the big differences today from many years ago is the cost of development is extremely high today, in terms of even the soft cost to go through the process, the cost of materials for putting down 2 lifts of asphalt and sidewalks and the infrastructure and the servicing.
Okay.
And for that reason, the province, through the provincial policy statement, has been pushing for greater densities, more intensification, in the interest of affordability. It'd be lovely to have 75-foot frontage lots, or the standard in the village, typically in the old plan, was 66 by 150. A lot of the old lots on the original Village of Westport plan. But when you consider the cost of the infrastructure and the cost of all of the construction involved, that just puts the price even more out of reach. And so more and more across Ontario, you're seeing more intensification. And plus, Westport 100 years ago had more people than it does today. Not that there was more homes,
Oh,
but
interesting.
the average household size in Westport's about 1.9 people per dwelling unit. And the most common household type in Westport is single occupant households. And so, whereas I was one of 8 kids, and there were several families in town that would have 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. And so I'm going to make up a number, I'm not sure, but I mean, if you go back 50 years, household sizes were probably 4, 5, 6 people per dwelling unit. So the population at 100 years ago was roughly 1,000 people in the village. So that's the other thing, is the housing types and sizes better reflect the demography here.
Okay.
The household types and sizes.
Okay.
And I think that's reflective of watercolor, that the average household size here is probably 2, if that's something.
Or 1.7 or 1.9,
Right,
because I remember reading this stat when we were getting back into home building, that in the US a dozen years ago, 60 to 70% of homes were 1 and 2 person occupant homes. And I thought, here you've got a lot of the big builders in Ottawa, Toronto, building for young families due to household formation, and that's one demographic to go after.
Right.
But I'm always an aspirational builder. What do people, 5 and 10 years older than I want? And now we realize, this is right sizing for a lot of people, and we're still welcoming the young families, of course. And we really think that is the future more and more. But Westport is like Niagara-on-the-Lake was 20 years ago when I started walking through that community, a naturally occurring retirement community. And I didn't know what the acronym NORC, Naturally Occurring Retirement Community, NORC, stood for until that wonderful gentleman, John Hawley, introduced me to that. But maybe we can shift gears.
Sure.
Since a lot
Yeah.
of people might be bored by all this land planning stuff.
Yeah.
How could you be bored by land planning?
I know. But history, I think a lot of people would be interested, especially since you worked in Muskokas, to know about the similarities of how Westport evolved similarly with the railroad, bringing Americans and Canadians up to this area, and then how they would go out on those two ships. So maybe you could share a bit about that for anyone listening
Sure.
from Toronto.
I was just a short time in Muskoka, but I've been doing planning in cottage areas across this end of Ontario for sure. But historically, a lot of the tourists that came to this area were actually American, a lot from Pennsylvania and from New York State. And the fish were a big draw for sure. We have excellent fishing in the lakes around here. Yeah. And the Rideau Canal, the Rideau Waterway, was built completed in 1832 to defend us from the Americans. And so it might come back into use again. I don't know. But
You digress.
I digress now. You can cut that. But it never did. It was never used for that purpose.
Sure.
But soon after, it was a waterway that brought a lot of tourists to the area. And because you could boat right from Ottawa to Kingston, and the B&W Railway, the Brockville to Westport Railway, came in the late 1800s. It stopped, I think, around 1953 or so, and it also brought tourists to the area. And then, of course, road infrastructure improved. But yeah, so we were an early area of tourism, and people from Toronto may associate more with the Muskokas and Haliburton and Kawartha areas, but we've got a long history of tourism in this area, and it's increasingly being discovered by, say, the GTA and so yeah, beautiful lakes in this area. Like at least 60 good-sized lakes within about 15-minute drive of Westport. And
60?
Oh yeah. There's more than that.
Okay,
if you
so
consider.
we've been
That's a
misquoting
new
your
number.
dad's line.
Yeah,
I thought it was 36 within a 15-mile radius.
Well, there's lakes and there's lakes. There's Bob's Lake, which is like 30 plus kilometers long, and then there's lakes that are 10, 20 acres. They're small, but suffice to say, there's a lot of lakes.
There's a lot
in
of
this
beautiful lakes.
Right.
Yeah,
To be explored and enjoyed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's really wonderful.
Because it was your dad's line that I've always quoted, 36 lakes within a 15-mile radius, but maybe I've got that wrong. So you're saying there's 60 lakes?
There's a lot of lakes.
Within
Someday
15 minutes
I'll draw a radius and I'll count to make it more official, but there's a lot
that
of
would be
lakes.
awesome, Mark. Because I don't want to mislead anyone, but it's interesting when local realtors were at the cottage show in Toronto with us one time, and they had on their wall of their booth a map. And I asked them why, and they said because it's all water, and when people see that, they realize,
right. Yeah.
there's almost as much water as there is land. So that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that water comes all that natural beauty and just people getting out on the water in the summer. It's a Canadian tradition, we wait for that winter to disappear, and there we are in those lakes enjoying the
One
outdoors.
of the really interesting things about this area is it's one of the few places in the world where there's two overlapping UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So we are the Frontenac Arch Biosphere as well as the Rideau Waterway, historic waterway. So, and they overlap right in this area here.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
So that influx of tourism that you talk about, how does that affect the village? I mean, you live here year round. You see the ebb and flow, right? Of just the pedestrian, the sidewalks get busy, the weekends are all jammed with activities.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how that, what's
Very,
that like?
very busy historically in July and August especially. Again, because a lot of the tourists were American back in the 70s when I was growing up here, and not as many now, more Toronto and Ottawa cottagers, and it used to be that after it was more like May long weekend to Thanksgiving, and then in the colder months it was very quiet here, very quiet. But it's not as quiet now as it once was, because a lot of these humble seasonal cottages are being converted into year-round homes as people
Okay.
escape the urban areas and come to heaven out here and live on the lakes. And and it's a great place to retire in this area, because we're still not very far to Ottawa or to Kingston. So.
Right.
So you're seeing a little bit more activities in the later fall, and winter's still quiet, but it's with more year-round residents in the area. It's certainly more active than it was 50 years ago, for sure.
And explain to people the idea of the book you've told me about, Ex Urbia.
Oh, that was a long time ago. I'd have to really think. But it is the idea of people moving from the larger urban centers to generally within an hour of larger urban centers. People like to still have their ties to the city. Maybe their kids are still, and grandkids are still in the city, and they're working there, so they don't want to be too awful far removed. But that's what positions our area very well when you think of Westport, sort of in the middle of 3 of the 4 largest cities in Canada: Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal, with Kingston nearby as well. So I mean, and yet we've got the lakes and the kind of natural features that we have here.
Yeah.
So it's a great position to be in for.
And we had a retail analyst join us here in Westport, and when he went through the grocery store and the pharmacy, he said, yes, the Rideau Canal is a rich person's highway, because the fact that the grocery store, for instance, would have caviar, pate, lobster tail, smoked salmon. He said, oh, that is indicative of the type of clientele who are coming to a premium location that nobody knows about. And, people around Ottawa know about it, but where I grew up, Oakville, Mississauga, most people went north or they went northwest. And that's why I think 35 years ago, moving to Stittsville, then you discover an undiscovered gem of Eastern Ontario, like Westport, and you think, this is a premium location that even Sir John A. Macdonald was coming here at the time of Confederation on the railway, fishing all day, partying all night. And that's why there is documented evidence that, some could say this is Canada's first cottage country that, again, nobody knows about.
Yeah.
So
You must count yourself very blessed to have been born and raised here.
Sometimes you have to move away to realize,
Yeah.
don't it seem to go with it? You don't know what you got till it's gone, to quote Joni.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. For that longevity piece, though, and aging in place, from a planning point of view, how do you feel that Watercolour is a good place for people to come and live for the lifetime? Like, just how do you feel about that kind of?
Well, we have a very active seniors group, or groups, in the village here, and there's walking groups, there's the Westport Blooms, and lots of ways to get involved and be active. And in terms of even housing types here, you may be in a single detached today, but it might be a semi or a town in the future, so you can age in place and stay connected in the neighborhood and in the community. And so
because we talk about Watercolour possibly being a blue zone, and
right.
walkability and being active in community, keeping physically active and connected to nature are huge components to
the
longevity.
Trails are a big thing. Westport's really trying to be recognized as a hub for trails.
Okay.
We've got various provincial parks nearby, Frontenac Park and Murphy's Point and Charleston Lake and the Rideau Trail and Foley Mountain Conservation Area. There's a lot of trails in the area, and so it's a real hub spot for that, and a destination for anybody that likes to walk or hike. And
Were you part of the new trailhead that we're opening up this spring? Oh, I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because I don't know a lot about the background, how that came to be.
Well, it's good to have a hub where people, it's a starting point where people can come and park, and there's a trail sign there, and it's on the Rideau Trail, it's on the mountain. Everybody knows Foley Mountain, they know the conservation area, but this is off of County Road 36 or Mountain Road. And so there's a beautiful hiking trail across the north shore of Sand Lake as well, so you could go in from there, and there's a spot called Old Bob's, which is similar to Spy Rock, and it's even a larger bald rock area with beautiful views. And so it would be maybe a 15-20 minute hike in from the trailhead there.
Okay.
And so
I think we have to take this podcast out of this room.
Oh, I would
I want Mark
love
to
to
show
do
me
that.
that.
That's a beautiful area for sure.
Yeah, okay. And the parking area allows year-round access, or is it just summer?
They're
Okay.
going to be plowing it. So it's, I think it was plowed this last winter. So
Okay.
I think there's just spot for 6 cars right now. But yeah, it's a beautiful area in there, and yeah.
Sounds amazing.
And I recall that Rock Dunder, that is owned by the Rideau Land Trust, I believe, someone told me they have approximately 100,000 people that go to enjoy the view along those trails and other places like that. And the thought was that eventually some of those people could be hiking from Westport, using Westport as sort of like Lake Placid, a hub for hiking the Rideau Trail. So yeah, can you explain more about the world interest in hiking?
Oh yeah, I think it's for your mental state, it's your physical state as well, and there's so many health benefits to hiking and being active, and just breathing fresh air and enjoying nature, and spiritual health as well. I think it's very important for that as well, and so to have the benefit of all these trails so close by. Right from Westport here, it's a real blessing actually to have that.
Yeah, I think about the accessibility. I know, Steve, you've talked about how you feel that there's an economic leveling in a way of accessible activity and recreation, and not having to invest in a lot of equipment, a cost to participate. There's a lot of barriers to entry for people to their wellness and access to nature. And yeah, the trails and that are a huge help. Even the trails within the community being connected to the village. You know, the sidewalks don't stop and start abruptly anywhere where there's a gap. You've planned it so well.
And it's because of things Mark has taught me, like blocks should be a maximum of 600 feet. And just hearing, oh, okay, and then if we have every 600 feet we have a green space of a walking trail or a park. These are all intentional things that we've learned from Mark and from others once he put me on to these ideas and concepts. And then the image, as we're hoping, that from that view from this fall, when all the trees are planted, up above on what will eventually be called Hilltop Park, or a number of homeowners are contributing ideas to what it should be called, and the idea of Discovery Trail Park. You putting me onto the idea of going to New England and seeing a Discovery Trail in New Hampshire in the state park. Just that was a lovely idea to see, oh, a Discovery Trail Park. Just, you only need really a kilometer, and to have some information and education on the preservation of the natural environment. So that if we preserve 50 acres out of our 220, people and nature can coexist with these paths, and that hopefully will be exemplified by this fall, thanks to you.
Well, and there's a variety of trails in the area for all users, right? There's accessible trails, even up at the conservation area. They have accessible trails for those who are unable to do the more extreme trails. But if you want extreme trails, there's those too. But yeah, there's quite a variety of trails in the area for all users.
And especially making them accessible. That's very much what we saw in Collingwood, is a 9-foot wide trail, so that people in the winter, you could have 2 cross-country ski trails, and then the dog walkers or anybody out for a walk uses the middle.
But I think you're talking about mobility accessibility.
There are, yes.
So that if you're even in a wheelchair or need a walker,
they have, and they're redoing the access to Spy Rock as well to make it even more accessible.
Okay.
And at the end of the road at Foley Mountain, there is an accessible trail there that you can take somebody in a wheelchair.
Really?
Yep.
We'll have to put a mark for that for sure somewhere in our communications pieces, because there are people who just have not had those in nature experiences. I know a while back you had sent me an article about forest bathing and it being prescribed by doctors for people's wellness, which we take that for granted. You know, I've lived in a more rural community myself as well, and in forests are not hard to come by, and there is a peace and a calm and a tranquility that someone who cannot hike those, more challenging terrains should have access to. So that's encouraging.
Another thing to mention is we have a beautiful beach here at the edge of the town and on Sand Lake, and it's just a short walk from here up to the Lions Club Beach, and nice west sunset views there. It's a really special spot that we have in the village. Yeah.
That's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, a mutual friend of ours, he takes some of his family to see the sunrise in the harbor and just sitting on the island in those wonderful chairs. And then he likes to see the sunset from the beach at Sand Lake, as many people do.
Yeah.
So from Hilltop Park, will you experience both sunrise and sunset?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. In the summer, it sets to the northwest,
will be
so you'll see this
unobstructed views.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I haven't been up there yet myself, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Oh, I think Mark is right. Once that becomes our trophy image of the village that might be someday just as famous as the view from Spy Rock, it really does change people's perspective, because it's a change of place no one's ever seen.
Yeah.
And Westport really is a change of pace, because it feels like you're going back in time 50 or 100 years to when people are friendlier and they walked everywhere.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a change of perspective.
Right.
So.
And there'll be a walking path that loops right up there, so people in the village can walk right up onto that view. That's one of the challenges at Spy Rock. You pretty much have to drive up to get that view.
Yes.
There is a crazy trail. If you're a mountain goat, you could do it to get up to Spy Rock from the village, but this will be very accessible for residents. Yeah.
Amazing. So just to kind of wrap up our conversation today, I don't think it would be shocking for our audience and our listeners to know that you're probably in the third or fourth quarter of your career, nearing the finish line.
Is it the gray hair?
I don't know. I mean, so in terms of, if you look at the Land Ark website, we've taken out two words to say: enduring legacy.
Yeah.
And feel that Land Ark wants to leave an enduring legacy, both from a physical point of view, a reputation of trust, and then also a spiritual point of view too.
Right.
Building community and introducing people to nature, to the Creator, God, and to transform relationships. How do you see what you're doing and what you're doing to the village, leaving that legacy? And do you look at it in those terms?
Well, I think it's in the nature of a planner to look really long term. In our society, everybody kind of looks at the here and now, what's right in front of them, but we're kind of trained to look 20, 25 years out or beyond. And that's kind of the way I've always been wired. And so that's when you talk about park spaces, and once you lay down a road, that's there. It's not likely to move ever. So we have to take that long-term perspective and make sure we've got things right. And for the benefit of, I've got kids and grandkids in the area now, and so I'm hoping they can enjoy these things as I have. So it's really important to me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for taking
your
your precious time to just share your story and to let people get to know you and to hear a little bit about how you've influenced what we're doing. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I hope that as you have listened to Mark, you'll make the effort or take the time to come and explore Westport for yourself and see just what a unique and special place this is. And if you have comments, share them with us. Like and share and listen and follow us along in the journey of building really a better place to call home here in Watercolour Westport.